So hello everyone, my name is Andy Veer, President and CEO of the Guelph Chamber of Commerce. I will be moderating the discussion this morning. As leading voice of Guelph's business community, the Guelph Chamber is pleased to be hosting this Q&A session. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. Before we begin, let us take the time to reflect on our privilege to live and work in Guelph, a city built over rich Indigenous histories. Collectively, we have a responsibility to care for this land, the people who live here today, and the generations to come. If our actions today can move us towards reconciliation, we should take pause and make those decisions with intention and gratitude. Guelph has served as traditional land and a place of refuge for many peoples over time, but more specifically, the Attawandarong and the Haudenosaunee. This land is held as treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and lies directly adjacent to the Haldimand Tract. Part of a long-established traditional hunting ground for the Six Nations of the Grand River, First Nations, Inuit, Métis people who have come across from Turtle Island call Guelph home today. So, we're pleased to be joined this morning by Janice Folk-Dawson of the New Democratic Party, Gravir Karia, Conservative Party of Canada, Dominique O'Rourke, Liberal Party of Canada, and Marie Jadlik, Green Party of Canada. So welcome everybody. I'm just going to spend some time here and go over the rules before we kind of dive into everything. So the format that's going to be used this morning has been shared with candidates in advance. The order in which candidates will speak will be done in alphabetical order of the candidates' last names. First, each candidate will be allowed 90 seconds for opening remarks. We will then move to a Q&A session. The questions have come from members of the Guelph Chamber and members of the community. The topics we will cover today include affordability, housing, competitiveness, healthcare, education, and the workforce. Candidates will each be given 1 minute to answer the question, and you'll be able to monitor your time on the screen. Please note that in the interest of time, each candidate may be cut off after the time allotted has passed. The order that questions are answered will be identified by the moderator on a rotating basis. Candidates, you will have the opportunity for a rebuttal if you or your party have been directly named by another candidate. In addition, rebuttals have the following rules. Rebuttals will not be allowed based on comments made during opening or closing remarks. A request for a rebuttal will be signaled to the moderator by using the raise hand function on Zoom. There are no rebuttals to rebuttals. So if somebody rebuttals, you're not allowed to re-rebuttal. My decision as the moderator will be final, and rebuttals are limited to 1 minute. Lastly, each candidate will be given the opportunity to make a closing statement, and the candidate order will be reversed from the introductions at the start. Closing statements are limited to 90 seconds in length. So we may get through as many questions as possible. We ask the candidates to be respectful of time and, as always, of each other. Candidates, please be sure to mute yourself when you are not talking. So, Amanda, if you could set the 90-second timer, please and thank you. I'd like to now, I already introduced the candidates. We're introducing the candidates again. So, this is the order for the introductory remarks. So, Janice, you're going to start us off. Gravir will go next. Dominique after that, and Marie after that. So, if we could start, Janice, you get 90 seconds. Please, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, and thank you for that introduction, and thank you for organizing this event. As was said, my name is Janice Folk-Dawson. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a settler, an injured worker with a disability, a working-class feminist. My partner and I have rented in Guelph for the last 39 years and raised our son in Guelph's public education system. I worked at the University of Guelph for 35 years and was the executive vice president of the Ontario Federation of Labour for 4 years. I've negotiated over 30 collective agreements in the public sector, ensuring gains for both workers and management and sustainability for the institution. I've been effective in changing policy and regulation at all levels of government. I'm a disability justice advocate, a poverty activist, a peace activist, a socialist, and an NDPer since I was 16 years old. This election is a very dangerous time in Canada and in the world. We're watching the rise of fascism. The blueprint for fascism was last produced in the 40s, and we saw universities infiltrated. We saw the destruction of the union movement, the attack on equality groups, and the creation of economic chaos. The blueprint is playing out and unfolding before us. It's imperative that we, as business and political parties, have this and ongoing future opportunities to talk about what businesses need, what local businesses need as we develop our industrial and employment strategy that
Thank,
protects our
thank you
sovereignty.
so much, Janice. You're just a little bit over time.
And I'm sorry, but now I can't see the timer again. It wasn't
Uh,
appearing there for me.
Sorry, it popped up with a time's up kind of thing, and then it goes away.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Janice. Gurveer, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, hello everybody. My name is Gurveer Kira. I'm running to be your next member of parliament for our beautiful riding of Guelph. I'm a proud Guelphite, a proud resident of this riding. I attended the University of Guelph, where I pursued a degree in criminal justice and public policy. I graduated with distinction, and in that time, I wrote approximately over 60 various essays on various public policy topics and various public policies in that time. So I have a deep knowledge of federal public policy, and I always say it's public policy is a tool, and the person who knows how to use the tool best is the best for this job. And I do believe I'm the best person to be able to utilize public policy for your benefit. In my 7 year history with the city of Guelph since 2018, I've connected with thousands of Guelphites. I've heard your frustrations, I've heard your concerns, and this is what made me put my name forward. I think we can all agree that the Canada we see today is not the Canada that we used to know. Of course, we're coming under threats to our sovereignty, but there's serious threats to our economy right over here within Canada that I believe are primarily the fault of the government of the day. We have serious crime issues. Violent crime is up 50%. We have serious housing issues. And just here in Guelph, our housing starts went down 65% last year. These are serious issues, and this track record is not indicative of a government that has been successful in handling these issues. So we need real change. We need to vote Conservative. Vote Gervier Kara. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurveer. Dominique.
Good morning, bonjour. Canada is facing unprecedented threats to our sovereignty and to our economy. We also need bold climate action and to address important concerns around the cost of living. Canadians need serious, responsible government with an integrated plan. Guelph's large manufacturing and ag sectors mean we are one of the most vulnerable cities in Canada. Trump's tariffs are hitting Guelph, and they are hitting hard. A Liberal government under the capable and proven leadership of Mark Carney will fight for our economy and sovereignty, protect and support our workers, and build a more prosperous Canada that works for and includes everyone. A Liberal government will make progress on climate and stimulate the economy through historic investments in infrastructure and clean energy, research and innovation, and trades. We'll lower interprovincial trade barriers and create new markets. A Liberal government will protect programs that help with the cost of living and boost housing supply. I have a 30-year track record in the private, public, and nonprofit sector, an economics degree, and a master's in leadership. I came to Guelph in 1997 to work for the Cooperators, first in public relations and later as Director of Public Affairs. I run a small communications firm. I've raised my family here, and since 2018, I've been a city councillor, fighting every day to build a better city. As chair of Council's Infrastructure Development and Environment Committee, I'm a champion of small business, of our manufacturing sector, and of economic development. I have a very deep understanding of Guelph's needs and opportunities. I know how policy is made and how it lands in a city. I'm ready to be a strong bilingual voice for you.
Thank you, Dominique. Anne Murray.
Thanks, Andy, and to the Chamber for inviting us all here today. I've been a practicing family physician in Guelph for the last 35 years, and my greatest triumph was delivering 2,000 babies at the Guelph General Hospital. They are all millennials, and I love each one of them. They are struggling more now than we ever did, or than my generation ever did. I started treating HIV-positive patients in 1990 and then built an HIV clinic in Guelph and in Waterloo. These beloved patients suffer under the weight of cruelty, injustice, and prejudice every day. Stephen Lewis introduced me to the great humanitarian crisis caused by HIV in sub-Saharan Africa, where the same injustices led to the rapid spread of HIV, wiping out an entire generation of young people. In response to that, I started a campaign in Guelph to raise $1 million, and by 2009, we won and kept 11,000 HIV patients alive and on treatment. At the beginning of COVID, I started to post and gathered 40,000 followers, posting every night to guide this community through the pandemic. pandemic. Now it is my community and my country who are suffering. I am just born to lead. I've watched our government shift their priorities away from providing for the people of this great country. I've watched our beautiful healthcare system disintegrate. I've watched the gap widen between the rich and the average Canadian, leaving people searching for jobs, housing, and food security. It is time for these needs to be met again. For a government that meet those needs, we must shift the priorities in government to reflect Canadian values. The Green Party of Canada's platform is literally a blueprint of this shift.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. So just a reminder, this next section, so the debate questions themselves are 1 minute timer instead of 90 seconds. So just be mindful of time. The order actually remains the same for this first question. It's Janice, Gervier, Dominique, and then Anne-Marie. So I'm just going to read out for you all, and then Janice, you will be up. So as we know, a big part of campaigning is door knocking. As you go into the community, what are you hearing as the biggest concern for Guelph residents this election? You have 1 minute, Janet. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And door knocking is an important part of the campaign. And I am taking the time to hear from people what is the biggest issue from them. And I'm hearing two different sides. I'm hearing one side that they just turn and say Trump and the tariffs, and they're absolutely terrified about what those tariffs mean to our community, to their family, and to their jobs. And then there's another group of people that when I ask them what the most important issue is that they are obviously living in very precarious situations. And for them, it's homelessness, it's food affordability, it's how are they going to be able to put good food on the table for their families. They're absolutely terrified of what the future holds for them and for their children.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Gervier, go ahead.
Yeah, in the many months that I've door knocked right here in the riding, I've heard of various issues. Most of the most prominent ones that come to mind are, of course, affordability. Guelphites just can't get ahead anymore, whether that's with housing, with their bills. Another one I hear is crime. Guelphites don't feel safe going into downtown. They don't feel safe hanging out at nighttime like they used to anymore. Another one that I'm hearing is Trump, the tariffs and risks to our sovereignty as a country. And another one, and this is quite sad, is the various tendencies we see across our riding and the homelessness rates. And I think the Conservative Party has the best plan to address these. I think, for one, we need to address our housing supply issues. For example, under the Liberal government, we built fewer homes in 2022 than we did in 1972, when our population was half its current size. Violent crime is up 50%. The Conservative Party will increase and help increase housing supply by axing the GST on the sale of new homes and also incentivizing municipalities to actually build more homes. And we will repeal the catch and release system implemented by the Liberal government. And I'm out of time.
Perfect. Thank you. Dominique, rebuttal.
So just on the home building, yes, Guelph's housing starts are down. They were the highest among the highest in the country last year. They are still the top third in Ontario right now. We have the Housing Accelerator Fund, $21.4 million from the federal government that helps with the zoning accelerating processes and currently grants for homeowners who want to add additional units or convert industrial or commercial to residential. And Pierre Poilievre has said he will cut that Housing Accelerator Fund, which is a direct download to property taxpayers. The Conservative government's idea of incentives for municipalities is to cut infrastructure funding if cities can't hit their housing targets. Yes, your leaders said this. So if the infrastructure funding is cut, the city still has to put in sewers and sidewalks and street lamps, and that will be a direct download onto property taxpayers. The Liberal plan says they will make municipalities whole. We've seen what a provincial Conservative government does to municipalities and to housing, and I don't want a double dose.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So there's no rebuttal to the rebuttal, Gervier. Sorry about that. There's also no rebuttal signaled if a leader is mentioned. By the way, that's a point of order. I just want to make sure is a thing. So if somebody names a party particularly or yourself, you're allowed to rebuttal, but not if somebody names a leader. So there were some questions about that coming into this, just so we're all on the same page there. It is actually Dominique's turn now to respond to the question about door knocking. So go ahead, Dominique.
I've been door knocking for 6 years, first as a city councillor and now as a candidate, and I've been door knocking as a candidate really since September. So Trump's tariffs, of course, are going to affect 16,500 households directly in Guelph. We are the most vulnerable city in the country. So a lot of insecurity around that. My own family has been hit by tariffs. My husband works in apparel, and they've been hit with 46% tariffs, which essentially is potential to wipe out their American market. So I get it. I get how policy lands in a home and in a city. People are worried about how we're going to protect their jobs, and the Liberal Party has a plan to support workers through EI, through a number of measures by opening up new markets. So there is a plan, first to push back hard on the states, and second to build the strongest economy in the G7. The second piece is people are worried about the cost of living, and the Liberal government has actually brought down the cost of childcare for people from $35 a day to $22 a day. It's huge savings for family, and that work's not done. So we want to keep going and bring that down to $10 and bring in other supports and protect what the Conservatives may cut.
Perfect. Thank you, Dominique. So Gervier, you could technically respond as a rebuttal to that if you want to raise your hand, because she did mention your party. It's up to you whether you'd want to or not.
Yeah, thank you. I think when it comes to the housing issue, I agree that it's a very serious crisis. But when we mentioned the Housing Accelerator Fund by the Liberal Party, it's actually more like the Tax and Inefficiency Accelerator Fund. And I'll point out to some examples. After giving Toronto $471 million, they increased housing taxes by more than $20,000 per home. After giving Ottawa $176.3 million, Ottawa increased housing taxes by between 11 and 12%. When the Liberal Party was asked why this was happening, they literally said the Liberal Party confirmed that they would double down and they would give more money to cities that increase housing taxes. So right here in Guelph is another example of this. They gave our city $21.4 million in 2024 in their housing accelerator fund, and our housing starts dropped 65% that same year. So it's not an accelerator, it's a tax and inefficiency accelerator is what it is. And the Conservative Party platform is far better. We will generally bring a
Sorry,
lower
Gervier,
housing
out of
that
time. Thank you, though. Thank you for that. And next up, we're going to go Anne Marie, please.
It's been a very interesting experience for me to go from door to door because I have not done that before. I have loved communicating with people at their doors. What I've noticed first is that people are suffering with affordability issues, great concern about whether or not they're going to be able to keep their homes or whether or not they're going to be able to afford rent. I spoke to a group of students who are all piled in. They're actually graduates who have undergrad degrees. They have jobs, but they can't afford a mortgage or affordable rent. So they're living in a house that's owned by one of the parents, all piled in. Their greatest concern is that they won't be able to afford a mortgage, that they won't be able to even afford rent. And that stalls them in their future because they're not able to think about long-term relationships or having children. So that to me is very heartbreaking. We need to focus big time on housing and affordability for youth. And the Green Party has some interesting platform recommendations for that.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Next, we're going to shift gears. We're going to go to healthcare. The order of this will be Gervier, Dominique, Anne Marie, and then Janice. So, question first to you, Gervier. So, over 6 million Canadians do not have a primary care physician. What will your party do to ensure every Canadian has access to a family doctor?
Thank you for the question. The Conservative Party has, I believe, the best approach to this issue because you're right, over 6.5 million Canadians do not have access to a family doctor. And actually, the ones that do, 41% say they cannot get an appointment in a timely manner. I'll tell you one of the issues is we have a shortage of medical professionals. Right now in Canada, only 41% of doctors with foreign credentials actually work as doctors, and only 37% of nurses with foreign credentials actually work as nurses. What that means is there's over 34,000 trained nurses and 19,000 trained doctors in our country with credentials that are not put to work by this Liberal government. The Conservative Party will introduce a Blue Seal national professional testing standard to bring all of their credentials up to Canadian standards and get these doctors and nurses who want to work, who want to help us, who want to help end the misery and turmoil in our hospital hallways, put them to work and allow them to serve humanity as they want to. So I think this is the best approach is to get doctors into hospitals, and we will also increase funding to provinces through the Canada Health Transfer. So,
Perfect. Thanks, Xavier. Dominique.
Thanks. So there's a lot of confusion around jurisdictions, I think. And the federal government is the largest piece in the budget is the federal health transfer. And the Liberal government has made the largest investment in our healthcare system in Canadian history. It will get to $190 billion over the next 10 years. So a 30% increase in the first 5 and a 60% increase over the next 10 years. That's focused on family health services, health workers and backlogs, to your point, mental health and substance use, and a modernized health system. The delivery of that healthcare is a provincial responsibility. And let's be clear, the provincial Conservative government has the lowest per capita healthcare spending of any province. They are 15% below the provincial average. So the federal government is funding and the provincial government is not delivering. So the Liberal government also brought in pharmacare, dental care, which is helping over 7,000 people here in Guelph. They've also negotiated to lower the cost of prescription drugs, and they've created a dedicated stream for mental health. And so the federal government is really looking
Thank you,
seriously
Dominique.
at help.
Sorry, you're over time. Anne-Marie, it's actually going to be your turn next for this.
So I will comment first and then rebuttal, and then comment.
Anne-Marie, sorry, you can't rebuttal because your party wasn't named.
Okay, good. Sorry
Neither
about
were
that.
you. Yeah, so you just get your 1 minute, speak.
Okay. The Canada Health Transfer are funds that are given to the provinces. There is not enough accountability for making sure that those funds are used for healthcare. We need a Primary Care Health Act, and we need to reform the Canada Health Act, which has not been reformed since 1984. In the province of Ontario and in all the provinces, if you put a Primary Care Health Act in place and made sure that provinces were using those funds to create and maintain a robust system of primary care by putting physicians and nurse practitioners and allied teams into primary care homes that service all in our neighborhoods, then we could correct the family physician crisis. I have a plan to do that in Guelph. It's already starting. I'm transforming my primary care clinic into one of those first primary care homes to make sure that the 56,000 people in Guelph who will be without primary care next year start to have a place to go if they've lost their family doctor. And the shortage of family physicians is multifactorial, but I'll talk about that in another question and answer.
Perfect. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Guilford, so just point of order for the rebuttal. It's the provincial Conservatives that you mentioned, not the federal Conservatives.
Okay.
So sorry. I know.
yeah, that's
I
just
know.
what I wanted to clarify anyways.
Yeah, no problem at all. Janice, you get your 1 minute. You're on mute, Janice. Sorry.
You think I'd know after how many years to get off mute, but thank you for the question. And yes, I think that when we are looking at our healthcare system, first of all, we need to recognize that we need to expand Medicare. We got dental and pharmacare, but we need to include more under hearing, vision, and mental health. But when we look at our healthcare system and we look at the shortage that we have with both doctors and nurses and other healthcare providers, we need to actually come up with an employment strategy of how we're going to make sure that we have doctors and nurses properly trained so that they can come into the healthcare system ready to hit the ground. I do know that the NDP has announced that we would be paying student nurses and student physicians so that they could actually, be part of the healthcare system, relieving the stress on some of those numbers. And we need to stop the 1.5 billion drain to private clinics.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Janice. So the order of this next question is going to be Dominique, Anne-Marie, Janice, and then Gervier. So Dominique, what are your party's plans to address the growing mental health and addictions crisis that has been impacting communities across the country?
Thanks, Andy. So clearly, the federal government launched a mental health transfer, and the question of mental health and addictions is significant in cities and rural communities right across the country. And so dedicated funding streams with clear expectations. I think we need more strings attached. A challenge is provinces look to the federal government and say we need more, and then they say back off. So I think that we need more oversight and more strings attached there to make sure that the delivery is appropriate. We really need fulsome supports. And I will say social services are a responsibility of the provincial government. We need fulsome supports so that when people are ready to go into treatment, that those supports are there. And that includes housing and wraparound services. And I will point out that the federal government has invested over $50 million in this community over the last 4 years for affordable housing, for shelters, and for supportive housing. We need much, much more of that. And the provincial Conservative government has not stepped in to the extent that it will, and I have very little confidence that the leader of the opposition will.
Thank you, Dominique. We're going to go to Anne Marie next, please.
So on top of reforming the Canada Health Act and putting a primary care health act in place, we need a mental health and addiction support act that makes sure that provinces maintain and build dramatically on support for mental health and addictions. We need to encourage things like housing, as Dominique said, with wraparound services so that people who are very housing insecure because of their addiction issues have a place to live with the wraparound services that allow them to recover from their addictions. We need safe consumption sites across the country. This is something that Jane Philpott was hugely successful at putting in place by stopping safe consumption sites. We take a piece of the treatment plan out for those with addictions and leave those people housing insecure and homeless instead of giving them the step up into a system that will take care of them and help them recover from addictions. I have way too many patients that I see every day who I cannot link to services. Those services need to be in place across the country.
Thank you, Anne Marie. We're going to shift over to Janice now.
So mental health is actually an issue that I'm also hearing at the door. People are stressed and do not have the supports that they need. So I agree with what the other candidates have said here today, that we need to certainly expand Medicare, and mental health must be part of an access for everyone. Right now, we know that we have suffered a total of 36,000 deaths because of, it's just unbelievable what's happening. And those are the ones that are recorded. How many deaths are happening that we don't know? Most importantly, we need not only access to mental health supports, we need, as Dominique and Anne Marie have said, we need those wraparound services of housing, of good food, and most importantly, access to a job, to be able to be feeling that they're contributing to society and we're supporting them to be able to do that.
Great. Thank you so much. Gurveer, go ahead.
Yeah, I think addiction is terrible. I've unfortunately have had spoken with many constituents who struggle with addiction, and it's a sad story. I mean, it really takes you away from your family and takes you away from being who you were. And I think the Liberal government, since they've been in power since 2015, we've had over 45,000 Canadians unfortunately die because of drug overdoses, and this has shot up over 184% under the Liberal government. We just in Nanaimo, BC, we've seen a 400% increase in drug overdose deaths in the last 4 years. So when the Liberal government says safe supply, it's really not that safe. The Conservative Party has a real plan to help bring these people back home to their families safe, and that is to fund and create 50,000 new addiction treatment spaces, which emphasize recovery and abstinence from these compounds. That's the real plan. That's how we bring home Canadians safe back to their families and members of society once again. So thank you.
Thank you, Gurveer. Dominique, go ahead.
Conservative Party of Canada sure loves a villain. Pierre Poilievre accused the Liberal government, the Prime Minister actually, of being responsible for a car that went the wrong direction on the 401 and tragically killed a family. And this is the extension that we're seeing. So the question of drug addiction and mental health is a serious one that should be addressed by the provinces because that is their jurisdiction. Mental health is health. Safe consumption sites are actually a health-seeking behavior. So when people have very little else, but they're still going somewhere to be safe to consume or to get safe supply, to know that it's not laced with fentanyl, that is a health-seeking behavior. And then there are supports at that location, and people help them to connect with rehab, with housing, with different supports. So we shouldn't be vilifying the people who are trying to help the most destitute people who are still trying to have a health behavior.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dominique. We're going to move to foreign policy now. The order for the next question is going to be Anne-Marie, Janice, Gervier, and then Dominique. So, Anne-Marie, how will your government strengthen Canada's role on the global stage by balancing national interests with our commitments to human rights, climate action, and international security?
Sorry, can you repeat that a little bit more slowly?
Yeah, absolutely. How will your government strengthen Canada's role on the global stage while balancing national interests with our commitments to human rights, climate action, and international security?
So I think the Green Party has the strongest climate action policy and the strongest human rights policy. Everything that we do on the global stage, this has to change. Governments are of all countries, some do better than others, are carrying on with business as usual, carrying on with focusing on individuals that may not need the money they receive from governments. We're neglecting the ordinary people on the ground, and we're neglecting the climate. Everything we do in the world and in this country needs to be done through a lens of what human beings need, that's human rights, a sovereignty lens, which is how do we protect our country from threats from the outside, and a climate change lens, which has to be the top priority. Without a climate, we don't have a place to exist. Temperatures have already risen to 1.1 degrees. When we get to 2.5 degrees of global warming, there may not be time to turn around and make things better.
Perfect. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Janice, go ahead.
I think that we start by making sure that we're resisting Trump's tariffs and his other attacks by building, buying Canadian and strengthening our social safety net. We also need to very much diversify our trade partners beyond the US, and we must reach out to other allies around the world when we're talking about world security, national security. I think that we need to look at making sure that we understand that to protect our sovereignty and to go into buy Canadian, build Canadian, that we need to think about green jobs. We need to think about how we produce green communities, but we need to think about how we retrain our workforce to be able to go there.
Great. Thank you so much. Gervier, go ahead.
Yeah, it's quite the question for 60 seconds, but I'll try to handle some of the topics. So I think one was discussed was our foreign relations. Firstly, I think the biggest foreign relation that we need to deal with now is with the United States. We have a neighbor to the south that has made threats against us, and we need someone at the table who can protect our sovereignty and fight for us. And I don't think Mark Carney's that man, because he has been endorsed on 3 separate occasions by Donald Trump at this point. He moved the headquarters of one of Canada's largest corporations, Brookfield Investments, into Trump's hometown just 6 days after Trump threatened us with tariffs. So there's a reason why Trump wants Carney to be the negotiator at the table, because this is someone who's already given him what he wants before, and there's an indication he'll do that again. Secondly, to protect our foreign relations, we need to actually commit to supplying our military effectively. We have left our military stripped and at a disadvantage, and the Conservative Party is so far the only party who's committed to meeting a 2% spending limit on our military. In terms of economy, we have the Liberals' Bill C-69, which has just devastated our economy and prevented us from being able to build pipelines right here in Canada and unlock
Perfect.
natural resources.
Thank you, Gervier. Time's up. Dominique, go ahead.
Thanks so much. It's a huge question. So first, we're going to stand up to the United States, and we'll all notice that Donald Trump is not calling Mark Carney our governor, and he's not calling us the 51st state. Why? Because he has an international reputation in the private and public banking sector. We do need to build more alliances, and that's why Mark Carney first went to Europe. We need to be a trusted party, and to do that, we must meet our NATO commitments. We must continue to be a leader in climate action. We will continue to trade. We need to share intelligence with trusted partners. And we also need to maintain strategic foreign aid, which we have heard one of the parties here will cut entirely. Well, that influences Canada's role in the world. and our role in stabilizing other parts of the world. And so we have a leadership opportunity there. With respect to climate action, no one party has the, holds all the ground there. And Canada has a proven record of climate leadership, and Mark Carney is going to build the cleanest, make Canada into an energy superpower. Oh, I have 3 seconds.
Thank you.
And on human rights, we really need to respect territorial integrity.
Thank you, Dominique. Your party was not actually named there. So just a point of order there. You guys are going to love this next question because you already kind of got into it a little bit. It's about defense. So and it's going to go Janice, Gervier, Dominique, and Marie. So do you support Canada substantially increasing its defense spending? What percent of GDP should Canada spend on defense? So go ahead, Janice. Over to you.
Thank you for the question. I was, as been mentioned before at other debates, I was raised in a military family, so I certainly understand the role of the military in protecting our national security. But my father was a peacekeeper in the military, and I think we need to have a conversation about the actual role of our military and what we want to see our military accomplish. We need to improve resources and support to both our active and retired vets. And we need to have an open discussion around NATO and what our commitment is there. But the NDP certainly believes that if we have made a commitment, we need to stick with that commitment until we have further discussions about what the resources are that we need to put into our military. But obviously, we need to be supporting our workers, making sure that they're trained for either the role of peacekeeper or defender, and making sure that they have the appropriate equipment to be able to do that. And we need to, as has been mentioned before, make sure we find new allies.
Thank you, Janice. Gervier, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Conservative Party of Canada is the only party that's really committed in a large scale to up our military spending to 2%, which is the NATO suggested amount for all members. I think it's very important to do that. So yes, the Conservative Party does agree in increasing our defense spending up to 2% of our GDP, because as of right now, 58% of our Canadian armed forces are not ready to deploy. We have a shortage of 14,500 troops, with a further 10,000 troops who are undertrained and undeployable. We actually had a larger, better funded military in the 70s than we do today. We owe it to our troops who risk their lives for us every single day to give them the equipment and the resources they need to not just complete their mission, but also to return from their mission safe and sound. And this is not the message we've gotten from the Liberals, who have constantly backtracked on defense spending. For one, they announced in July that they would acquire up to 12 new submarines. But this week, when Carney was asked that same question, he said he couldn't commit to a number. So we need to find our troops and so that they can come back home safe and sound.
Perfect. Thanks, Gervier. Dominique, over to you.
I went to junior high on a military base. It was the only French school in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. So my friends' parents went to sea and worked at CFB Shearwater. So I really believe our military needs to be properly paid, equipped, and taken care of when they come home, and their families do too. Canada absolutely has to meet its 2% NATO target. And let's just remember that under Stephen Harper's government, the military spending was cut to 1% of GDP, the lowest in Canadian history. You go look it up. So I love integrative thinking, and Prime Minister Carney's plan to build new submarines, icebreakers, advanced drones really helps us stimulate the economy, will attract employment, and we can give our soldiers both a role in domestic emergencies and deployments across the world. So we're going to modernize recruitment. We're going to buy new equipment. We're going to speed up and improve procurement, which is terrific. And we also need to be looking at working with our allies on intelligence and cybersecurity, because defense is not defense from the 1940s anymore. And if there are changes, it's because we're listening to leadership in the military.
Sorry, Dominique, gotta cut you off there. Thank you very much. Anne-Marie, go ahead.
When looking at defense, I like to look locally and then nationally. Our greatest resource is are the human beings in this country. And as a country, we are ignoring their needs. We are leaving ourselves in a less secure, much less secure position. So the Green Party will focus first on making sure that everyone in Canada is receiving all they need. In Guelph, Janice and I are actually working on a committee called Resistance and Resilience Guelph so that we can become more resilient if there are military needs in the future. The Green Party of Canada does support increased spending in the military to 1.5% of GDP, which some people may think is surprising, but defense is very important, specifically to expand Arctic and coastal security patrols, upgrading surveillance and monitoring defense equipment to protect Canada's northern and to protect maritime sovereignty.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Anne Marie. So the next question, we're going to turn to housing. Gervir, you're going to start us off. Then it's going to go Dominique, Anne Marie, and then Janice. So Gervir, Canadians continue to struggle to find access to suitable, affordable, and accessible housing options. How will your party work to increase the supply of housing options from across the housing continuum?
Yeah, thank you. So the Conservative Party has pledged to require cities to increase homes built by 15% each year and then 15% on top of the previous target every single year going forward, and reward cities for hitting these targets. This is one way to increase the supply of housing. And as we all know, when supply goes up, prices naturally come down. We will also cut the GST on the sale of new homes, which will save a home buyer up to $65,000. That's roughly $3,000 a year in mortgage payments. This will also create and spark the creation of another 36,000 homes every single year across the country. We're going to cut development taxes on homes up to $100,000 so that once again, Canadians can save money. We're also going to be selling 15% of the federal government's 37,000 buildings and require this space to be turned into affordable housing. The Liberals have failed in this regard when it comes to housing. They have increased salaries of CMHC executives by 27% when housing rates have fallen across the country. And when Pierre Poilievre was housing minister, 39% of median income, household income went towards housing. Under the Carney Liberals today, it's over 60%.
Gervir, sorry, I have to cut you off. Dominique, rebuttal.
Thank you. So the first thing you need to know is that cities don't build housing, developers do. So if the economic conditions are not there, and actually the Liberal Party has already brought in a number of initiatives to help to spur that. So making it easier to build purpose-built rental, removing or creating the accounts for first-time home buyers. So there's a number of things there, and the Housing Accelerator Fund is clearing the way, but cities don't build that housing. And to think cities are going to increase their housing supply by 15% every year just shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how it works. Guelph is a groundwater community. We may not be able to have this exponential growth. And let's be clear, the developers have no mechanism or intention to pass those savings along to consumers because they don't sell at cost. They sell at the market. And so there's no mechanism there. Mark Carney's plan is actually to make cities whole by helping us to reduce development charges because that goes straight to infrastructure. There's a fundamental misunderstanding here. I'll also say that your leader.
So Dominique, you actually get a minute now to actually answer the original question. So
Sure.
you can
Yeah.
go ahead.
So there's a great plan in place that is starting to take traction, but these things take time for zoning, for planning. The new Liberal plan, the next iteration, plans to build 500,000 new homes a year. We'll build affordable housing at scale, which is a difference. We'll put $25 billion in financing to innovative prefabricated home builders in Canada, including right here in Guelph. So that's who builds. But I love the $10 billion in low-cost financing and capital for affordable home builders. And the Liberal Party is going to work with provinces and territories to keep municipalities whole. That's a significant difference from the other plans. They're going to build on the success of the Housing Accelerator Fund, also remove the GST for first-time home buyers and homes at or under $1 million. We're fast-tracking development. We're increasing density. We're renewing infrastructure. In this city, federally funded, there are incentives for additional residential dwelling units or basement apartments. The federal government has invested in affordable housing here in this city. And just compare that with what the provincial counterparts have done. Very little investment in housing and mostly handicapping cities.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you. Thank you, Dominique.
yeah.
Anne Marie, go ahead.
So I'll tell the world, and you can call my college if you want to. I have a patient who is so housing insecure at the moment that she is living in a hotel with her very ill husband. And I actually paid for her rent last night and tonight because she'll be on the street without it. Housing is a complex issue that needs to be handled collaboratively, federal, provincial, municipal governments working together. The Green Party would like to shore up municipal governments, provide them with more funding so that they can tackle the housing issue on the ground. Yes, it's a municipal federal issue or a provincial issue, but the Greens would like to support the municipalities in building climate-friendly, medium-density homes. The federal government would also like to build, the Green Party would also like the federal government to start investing in houses like the war houses, deeply affordable, costing less than 30% of a family's annual income.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anne Marie. Janice, go ahead.
When I've rented all my life, and I am living in an apartment that I've rented for the last 16 years. And so I am basically forced to stay into that apartment because of rent control. So when we're talking about housing, we need to make sure that we're talking about not just purchasing homes, but by renting homes. Clearly, the government needs to use every tool at its disposal to help people find homes that they can afford and that are accessible. We'll stop the NDP will stop big corporate landlords from buying up affordable homes and give nonprofit more funding to buy homes and keep them affordable and accessible. We'll build rent-controlled homes on public land. We'll support first-time home buyers with a CMHC-backed mortgage, and we'll launch a massive housing building program to create jobs, keep our economy going, and making sure people can find homes that they can afford.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Janice. The next question is going to go to affordability, cost of living, and inflation, which you all mentioned were top of mind for a lot of people you were seeing. So it's going to go Dominique, Anne Marie, Janice, and then Gervier. So affordability is top of mind for many Canadians. Which new policies are your party proposing to deal with the rising cost of living? Go ahead, Dominique.
Thanks. I'd say the number one thing right now in this city is to protect the jobs in our manufacturing and agricultural sector, to push back hard on the states, and to put every dollar from those reciprocal tariffs back into protecting those jobs. The second part is to continue to grow the economy so people have access to well-paying jobs. So, the income piece is important. The second piece is that there is a proposal for a middle class tax cut. There's a 5% increase to guaranteed income supplement for seniors for 1 year. But also critical programs like pharmacare, dental care, and childcare especially are really making a difference in people's budgets. So childcare here in Wellington County for 2,000 families has gone from $35 a day to $22 a day, and we're increasing the number of spaces. So we're seeing record investments in Canada's electricity grid, which will lower housing costs or energy costs. The housing construction piece will also bring down rents, and if the University of Guelph can build housing, that will really, really be helpful for our rental market.
Thank you, Dominique.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Anne Marie, go ahead.
So the same person I'm talking about who is about to be on the street, which is just unfathomable to me, would benefit from having access to more social or subsidized housing. The federal, provincial governments have not invested in subsidized housing since the 90s. So while building more affordable homes that are deeply affordable, much like the wartime homes, we also need to invest in subsidized housing. The Green Party believes strongly in a guaranteed living wage. So as we go through this difficult time where people will lose their jobs, they need a guaranteed livable income that allows them to purchase food, to pay for their rent. Without this, they will not be able to access services quickly enough to provide for their families. We also believe in a National Bill of Rights. I have people who are just about to be pushed out of their apartments because their landlord has increased their rent by 33%. With a National Bill of Rights, we can control rents across the country.
Perfect. Thank you, Anne Marie. Janice, go ahead.
When we are talking about the cost of living, I think that we need to think about a few things that are happening in people's lives around housing, around food insecurity, and the need for transportation for transit. And so we need to look at all three of those aspects when we're talking about the cost of living. And healthcare. If unless we have good, healthy workers, cost of living is just impacted by not having good health care. Without the NDP, we would not have pharmacare or the dental care that we have. We need to think about eliminating the GST on basic groceries and restaurant meals, home heating, phone bills, kids' clothing. We need to put a price cap on essentials at the grocery stores. We need to make more changes and access to life-changing drugs for people, and of course, the building of homes and food security and free transit.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Janice. Gervier, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So I think the Conservative Party has the best policies to help address our affordability crisis. We will repeal the no new development law, which is known as Bill C-69, and unlock our natural resources so that we can bring prosperity into our nation instead of driving investment down south. We will be cutting income taxes by 15%, which will save the average worker $900 per year, with dual income families saving actually $1,800 per year. We will axe the sales tax on new Canadian cars. We will also, we estimate that these policies and others will boost our economic activity by $500 billion over the next 5 years. And Mark Carney has come out and said that he would like to see 80% of our natural resources remain in the ground, where they cannot be used by Canadians to fund our economy and bring prosperity to them. When it comes to tariffs, we will reinvest every dollar in any potential reciprocal tariffs right into our workers who are impacted by these tariffs and to protect their livelihoods. We will permanently axe the carbon tax, not just temporarily alter its rate. We have seen a $700 increase in the food bill in 2024, a lot of it because of the carbon tax.
Thank you so much, Gervier. Appreciate your answer. We're gonna go to business competitiveness and tariffs. The order for this first question is going to be Anne Marie, Janice, Gervier, and then Dominique. So Anne Marie, you're going to start us off. According to a recent report from the Conference Board of Canada, Guelph is a top Canadian city to be impacted by tariffs. Should you be elected as our local representative in Ottawa, what will you do to protect our local workforce and mitigate these impacts, Anne Marie?
I think it's very important locally to make sure we're supporting small businesses because they're the engine of our economy. The Green Party of Canada will hold small business tax rate at 9% of the first 500,000 of active income. We will expand access to capital for small businesses through a $5 billion annual loan. In terms of what is specifically happening in Guelph and the threat to our automotive industry, I would like to see funding that goes to the companies that are that will be tariffed as a result of being in the automotive industry, and have funds available for them to retool to produce products for clean energy and clean resources, climate-friendly products. So a $1 billion fund that will allow larger companies in Guelph to do that. And also, great idea, Kruber, you talked about this, using retaliatory tariff funds to support our companies to retool towards a cleaner economy.
Great. Thank you so much. Janice, go ahead.
Tariffs are definitely an issue that we as Team Canada need to be able to deal with in a very robust way. And we totally agree with what has been said before. And the NDP is working quite well with Team Canada on the reciprocal tariffs. And we need to figure out where most appropriately the funds that are raised by those reciprocal tariffs go to be able to support our economy, both in the businesses and in the workers. We need to figure out a way to protect workers who are losing their jobs as a result of tariffs. And we need to have a robust EI system and also think about seniors and persons with disabilities to be able to survive the tariffs. The NDP will also work to remove interprovincial trade barriers and onshore domestic production to create manufacturing jobs that will mitigate the effects of tariffs from the U.S.
Great. Thank you, Janice. Gurveer, go ahead.
Yeah, tariffs are a real threat. My own family has experienced this. My mother, who works at a food processing plant, has had the entire second shift at her workplace cut because of tariffs and the uncertainty that they bring to our economy. And I think the Conservative Party has the best plan to address this. Firstly, we will have a strong negotiator in Pierre Poilievre at the table to defend all of us and to protect our sovereignty when it comes to negotiations with Trump. But also, we will take all the proceeds from any economic actions that are taken by the Canadian government against these tariffs to fund our workers who are the most affected by these tariffs. Because I say this tariff situation we're having is being currently fought by our workers. Our workers are the front line. The Canadians that go to factories every single day that have had to experience layoffs, that have had to experience lost shifts, are the people at the forefront of this issue, and they're the ones that are the most impacted. So they're the ones who should also receive the most help. And the Conservative Party stands behind our affected workers, and it stands behind Canada to put Canada first.
Great. Thank you so much. Dominique, go ahead. You're on mute, Dominique.
In order to be able to protect local businesses, fight against the tariffs, and build a stronger economy, your member of parliament needs to be in government. And so that is a number one thing that will have some influence. With respect to business competitivity or competition, we need to increase productivity, and we can do that through investments in research and development. And that aligns with us pushing back on Trump's tariffs and growing our own economy. I believe in supporting all businesses, our large ones, and the federal government invested $190 million at Linamar to shift to EV production, and the province, $100 million there as well as supporting our small business. I've done a number of business roundtables. We need to attract, grow, and retain businesses. I also like what the Liberal Party is proposing with respect to our agricultural sector. So I worked at Agricor, increase agri-stability, and also increase Canadian processing, build more markets, support our trades, and strengthen EI.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dominique. The next question, the order is going to go Janice, Gurveer, Dominique, and then Anne-Marie. So what will your party do to reduce interprovincial trade barriers and create a more integrated national economy that benefits businesses and consumers across Canada? Go ahead, Janice.
So if we need to, in this country, have an industrial and workforce strategy. And when we recognize that there are issues with our workforce, we need to actually put in place an education program, a retraining program, to make sure that we have workers that can travel across the country, are well educated. If we're going to build and buy Canadian, we need to make sure that we have a trained workforce, and we need to integrate those green jobs into our secondary and post-secondary education system. And we need to remove the barriers for trades going across the provinces.
Great. Thank you so much. Gurveer, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think one way to reduce our dependence on the United States is to trade with our biggest trading partner, which is Canada. At least it should be Canada. And the best way to do this is to allow our provinces to work together to harness our resources. And the Conservative Party of Canada is said this in clear terms that we will allow provincial cooperation. The best way, one of the best ways to do this is to repeal Bill C-69 and allow our provinces to cooperate with one another to build infrastructure like pipelines, which will allow them to share resources between the provinces. And instead of selling, in the current model, what we do is we sell our natural resources at a huge discount to the United States and buy them back when they've been refined at a massive markup. That does not that makes us dependent on the United States. So we need to allow our provinces more autonomy to be able to work with one another. I don't agree with this current government passing laws like Bill C-69 to limit this cooperation in economic activity. So we need to build, build, build. Thank you.
Great. Dominique, go ahead.
When I did my undergraduate degree in economics 30 plus years ago, we were talking about interprovincial trade barriers. And about a year ago, my team said, what would you like to do if you went to Ottawa? And I said, I really like to tackle interprovincial trade barriers. And they said, oh, that's so old. And now the old is new again. So Mark Carney says we're going to have one national economy, not 13 by Canada Day. So Liberals are tackling interprovincial trade barriers once and for all. And it's not just now. Since February, the government announced new provisions in the Canada Free Trade Agreement, enhancing labor mobility, initiating unprecedented cooperation between federal and provincial governments. We've seen this historic agreement between Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador on Churchill Falls on energy, which is really exciting. We're seeing Prime Minister Carney and the Liberal Party propose national infrastructure building, which is also very interesting, especially the piece where we're moving to a cleaner grid. We also need to be doing this in collaboration with provinces and Indigenous people, and we need to boost productivity and simplify programs.
Great. Thank you, Dominique. Anne-Marie, go ahead.
So Canada sells, this is terrifying, Canada sells 75% of its exports to the US and sources 33% of its imports from them. So high tariffs are going to affect all of us dramatically. Guelph will be at risk. The country will be at risk. The country's economy needs to be reimagined. We not only need to break down provincial barriers in trade, but also in health, in all of the professions, in the workforce, so that everyone can move from province to find work and to build economies across the country. I strongly believe that while we're reimagining Canada's economy, we also need to support the people who are going to suffer as a result of these tariffs. And that involves increasing the resilience across the country of individual communities, but looking at Guelph, how can we increase the strength and resilience of Guelph and our people by supporting them and by working together as leaders to understand how to provide the resources they're going to need to survive over the next few years.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to shift gears a little bit and go to taxation now. So we're going to go Gervier, Dominique, Anne-Marie, and Janice is the order of this. So Gervier, does your party have plans to conduct a comprehensive federal tax and spending review?
Yeah, the Conservative Party is actually committed to doing an audit of our current taxation. This will be done for both commercial as well. So we will be doing a comprehensive tax audit once we form government. But we've also committed to cutting taxes by 15%, as I mentioned, which will save $900 for a single worker and $1,800 for a dual income family per year. We've also committed to axing the taxes on development as well as the GST on the sale of new homes, which will help Canadians when they purchase a home and save some money to go towards other aspects, which we've seen rise up, for example, with the food bill. And the food bill, predominantly because of the carbon tax, we will actually repeal the law, the carbon tax law itself, instead of just temporarily changing the rate. Because when you tax the farmer who uses the fertilizer with carbon tax, when you tax the truck who ships the food on the fuel with the carbon tax, when you tax the grocer who stores the food with the carbon tax on the heating, you also tax the person who buys the food, which is a Canadian. Thank you.
Thank you, Gervier. Go ahead, Dominique.
Thank you. So I think Mark Carney is certainly the right leader to have serious review of both the government's expenditures and the level of taxation required to support that. So he has said that he will balance the operating budget in 3 years. And I quite like the division of an operating budget and a capital budget, because expenditures in a capital budget continue to serve the country and the community over the longer term. We saw the elimination of the carbon tax, which immediately put more money back in people's pockets. And at the same time, we can continue on other aspects of the climate plan that has been working. The Carney government has announced a middle-class tax cuts that would save families up to $825 a year, which is responsible and won't require massive cuts somewhere else. We'll also be looking at creating new jobs. So it's not just about revenues, but it's about increasing the economy's capacity. And I believe that we should be looking at efficiencies in the public sector to better serve Canadians.
Great. Thank you, Dominique. Anne Marie, go ahead.
So again, back to the community. I think we need to rethink how federal governments work, and in particular, our federal governments in this country. Um, for various reasons, they are no longer serving the people, and there is a growing gap between the very wealthy in our country and ordinary community members like you and I. And I've watched the disintegration of the healthcare system. I've watched people lose their jobs. I've watched people suffer with affordability issues. These are all government problems. What are we doing wrong? And how have we moved away from caring for the individuals? So the Green Party of Canada would like to free up funds through taxes that allow us to fully support community members across this country to strengthen our best resources, which is human beings. We'd like to eliminate the federal income tax for anyone who makes less than $60,000 a year, which will free up $4,000 per year for each family. We'd like to increase the corporate tax rate from 15% to 21% for businesses with profits greater than 1 million, and a permanent windfall tax of 15%.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Sorry, I have to cut you off there. Janice, go ahead.
We clearly know that life is already too expensive for many Canadian families. They can't afford to bear the brunt of the trade war that no one in Canada asked for. And our services like healthcare are stretched to the breaking point. And that's why we need big business and the wealthiest to pay their fair share in taxes. The NDP focus is on a tax relief for workers and to make life more affordable, a middle-class tax cut, and higher taxes for billionaires and corporations. We would eliminate GST on essentials like diapers, home heating, and other essentials, and we'll make sure that the very wealthy pay what they are responsible for paying so that we can invest in the services that families need and build that social safety net. An interesting observation is that when we had tax credits instead of elimination of tax for corporations, we found more investment in research and development, and we had lots of good ideas to create jobs and to boost our economy.
Perfect. Thank you, Janice. In the interest of time, we're going to ask two more questions, and then we're going to move to closing remarks. Don't want to keep you guys here all day. So this question is going to be about jobs and workforce. So it's going to go Dominique, Anne Marie, Janice, and then Guelph. So Dominique, what is your position on how to best support labor mobility for skilled trades workers across Canada?
So labor mobility is critical in terms of this sort of elimination of interprovincial trade barriers. The Liberal Party has a really wonderful plan for apprentices to help fund their education, and that will boost our ability to build homes across the country and also to build that infrastructure. So what I like about the plan is that it's a nation-building plan, it's fueling an economy, it's also helping to fund colleges, and it's helping to train apprentices. So I think that's terrific. The other thing is we need to keep our workers in all those jobs as well, right? So we need to be pushing back on the Americans. We need to be building our industry, including manufacturing, agriculture, defense, because all of those large businesses also support communities, also support smaller businesses. Mark Carney literally wrote the book called Values about how we need to get to an economy that serves people and not the other way around. And we have an excellent plan.
Perfect. Thank you. Anne Marie, go ahead.
So of course, we know that we need to drop interprovincial trade barriers, and that will be one of the positive things that comes out of the tariff war with the Americans. From my perspective, we also need to drop licensing barriers. There are 21 regulated professionals in the country that have to recertify every time they move from province to province. It's expensive to recertify. People usually do not bother trying to do it. So when Nunavut needs doctors and nurses, it's too hard for those doctors and nurses to recertify, so they stay where they are in areas that may not need them as much. Um, we are looking also at working against climate change. So the Green Party has a great plan of creating a youth climate corps and a climate action corps that will allow for employees to move across the country to fight climate change, and they need to have the ability to move freely as well.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Appreciate that. Janice, go ahead.
When we talk about labor mobility, we need to talk about a workforce strategy for this country. And one of the main components of that workforce strategy has to be to revamping our education system to meet the needs of what workers we're going to need to take these new jobs. I think that we need to think about how we integrate into secondary, post-secondary, and retraining of workers, and think about what is the possibilities of training folks at union halls, where we have a connection to the union, to the workplace, where folks are actually getting their apprenticeship programs and they are making money while they're getting it. They have a connection to their employer and they're up to date on those, the equipment and tools that are being used. We need to ensure that post-secondary education and trades training has a dedicated envelope of money coming from the federal government. And obviously there needs to be accountability to that, but to be able to move towards green jobs and new workers having the skills that they need.
Thank you, Janice. Gurveer, go ahead.
Yeah, it's actually important to encourage skilled trade. And the Conservative Party has pledged to invest and also back 350,000 positions for trade schools and union halls to train Red Seal apprentices to build homes. And we will bring back the $4,000 apprenticeship grant that Mark Carney plans to eliminate. We will also require financial institutions that offer RESPs to also recognize all skilled trades and apprenticeship programs as eligible RESP programs, which will ensure that all related expenses qualify for education assistance payments. If you want to encourage skilled trade, we have to back skilled trade, and this is one of the best ways to do it. Also, when we do have Canadians that enter into skilled trade and do have to travel for work, right now the corporate insiders can write off their private jet travels, but our workers are capped at only $4,000, even if they have to go 20 or 30 times a year traveling long distances. We believe that workers should be able to write off all of their travel expenses. And in the event of injury, God forbid, we believe that Canadians should be better covered by extending the EI period to 52 weeks in the event of critical illness.
Perfect. Thank you, Gurveer. The next question and our final question before getting closing remarks is going to be around immigration. We're going to go Anne Marie, Janice, Gurveer, and Dominique. So how will your government ensure that Canada's immigration policies are responsive to both labor market needs and the humanitarian responsibilities that we have? Anne Marie.
Wow, this is a great question. I provide care to many patients who have immigrated to this country. Many of them are refugees, and I had an interesting or heartbreaking experience with one couple in particular who spent the last winter in a tent. We brought in so many immigrants so quickly without providing the social infrastructure, housing infrastructure, job infrastructure, that many of them were left housing insecure and food insecure. Anytime we're going to bring immigrants in this country, and we are a diverse country who needs those immigrants, and we need them to provide labor support. But we need to make sure that what we promise to give them when they come here is actually what they receive. Should be full access to our healthcare system, full access to prescriptions, full access to dental care, housing, employment, all that a person needs, not leaving them in the situation where they become homeless.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Janice, go ahead.
So I think that we need to start with a conversation about what is the actual goal of our immigration policy, and figure out if that is what are we trying to accomplish with immigration. And I think that what we are clear on is what was just mentioned is that when we are welcoming people into Canada, we need to make sure that we have the social infrastructure that's next that is there to support them, to ensure that they have success, and to ensure that they are able to contribute and have a healthy lifestyle while we are here. We need to move towards a credential recognition policy in this country. We are bringing in workers who have the skills that we need, but because of backlog, we are and processes, we are not able to actually match those folks into the jobs where they are required.
Thank you, Janice. Gervier, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a second generation Canadian. My parents are immigrants to this country, so I see the value in immigration. But immigration has to be done, I think we can all agree, responsibly. And the Conservative Party has the best approach to this. We will prioritize responsible immigration. We also want to take care, well, what I believe is, look, immigration has to benefit both the person coming in and also our nation of Canada. And one of the best ways to do that is to allow the people that come into our nation that have skills, for example, in the medical profession, to be able to get those skills accredited here in Canada and get to work. Because we're seeing far too many people that are skilled, that are immigrants, that are just not allowed to work the very positions that they have credentials for, especially in the medical industry. So, and I say this all the time. I say, look, in the last 10 years, we had a 1.4% growth in GDP, whereas the US had an 18.2% growth in GDP. So how I explain that is we have a 2025 population with 2025 problems with a 2015 bank balance and 2015 finances. How does that work? It doesn't.
Perfect. Thank you, Gervier. Dominique, go ahead.
First, I'd start by differentiating Guelph's growth and the Canadian immigration system. Guelph's growth and our population targets are set by the Provincial Ministry of Finance. The pressure on our housing is often being a drive till you qualify city. And so we're seeing a lot of that. The University of Guelph is not historically a large, a significant university in terms of foreign students. So that's a different piece. Why did we see such an influx in foreign students? Because the Conservative government in Ontario is starving colleges and universities, and they saw this as a way to keep their revenues. And so that doesn't serve the students, and it doesn't serve Canada and our immigration policy. Those students have been misused. Also, temporary foreign workers and the influx that came sort of suddenly was a response to the business community post-COVID saying we need labor. And so we do need to take a look at what the requirements are in terms of what is the level of unemployment in the area, what are the skills that are required. We're all immigrants. Immigrants are key to growing our economy.
Thank you,
and strengthening our
Dominique. I
communities.
appreciate that. We're going to be moving into closing remarks now. So thanks everyone for your answers for the question and answer period. Closing statements will be presented in reverse order from the opening remarks, and you will have 90 seconds for your statements. Just a reminder, there are no rebuttals in the closing remarks. So the order of this is going to go Anne Marie, Dominique, Gervier, and then Janice. So Anne Marie, if you're ready, you have a minute and a half.
Well, it's a really big deal to jump out of medicine into politics, and it's not something that I had planned. I love my patients and I love my practice, but I'm watching climate change run amok and race towards numbers of global warming that will make the planet no longer habitable. So that's why I'm running. I'm also running because I want to try to rescue our healthcare system, which I think can be rescued. My constituency office, very quickly, will have a clinic that will try to bring the 56,000 patients that do not have access to primary care. The constituency office itself will have social workers that will reach out into the community to increase strength and resilience and provide access to services to people who are about to be housing and food insecure. And then a climate hub. We're not talking about climate anymore. And that climate hub will inform and educate Guelphites around what is happening with climate change and how can we as individuals reduce our climate emissions and set examples for the rest of the world as how to do that. I'm a Green MP. We're going to have a Liberal majority or minority. So in Guelph, you can vote according to your values, and I strongly recommend that you vote Green.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Dominique, go ahead.
Thank you. Passion and plans without any power or being a member of government will not be effective. We need serious, strong leadership in Canada and in Guelph. We know the next Prime Minister of Canada will be Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre. One has solutions and the other has sound bites. One has an international reputation for public and private sector finance, has led through global crises and managed large organizations, and has those green credentials. The other is a cantankerous career politician. In this moment, we need that serious leadership for a sound integrated plan to support workers and industries, to protect our sovereignty and to build the strongest economy in the G7. We cannot assume the outcome of this election. Every riding in Canada matters to give Mark Carney a strong mandate. Every vote in this riding matters. I'm the candidate with the type of leadership that Guelph needs. With extensive experience in communications and experience in all levels of government, I know how to navigate. I have a deep understanding of Guelph's issues and opportunities and a commitment to making a lasting impact. I'll fight to protect Guelph's economy and our jobs from the external threats we face. And that includes your retirement savings, your pensions, and opportunities for young people. I'll work to protect our workers and our businesses from the economic harm caused by these tariffs while we build new infrastructure, new industry, more homes, and a renewed federalism. I'll build on the federal programs that people rely on, like childcare. I'll amplify those efforts to build a stronger Canada. I'm asking you to vote O'Rourke for us, for leadership, for Team Carney, for Guelph, and for Canada.
Thank you, Dominique. Gurveer, go ahead.
Yeah, and once again, I want to thank you for having us. I want to say I respect all of my fellow candidates and I think they're great people and I definitely admire them. But I do think that I'm the best person to lead Guelph through these tough times and be your federal representative in Ottawa. I understand the issues. I have spent lots of time communicating with thousands of Guelphites to hear their frustrations, and there is a lot of frustration. I believe in action, and this government has failed. This Liberal government has failed to take action, and this failure to execute is evident when we look at crime, which is a very serious issue, and Canada is currently going through a crisis. When we look at the statistics for crime, under the Liberals, violent crime is up 50%, car theft is up 46%, human trafficking has spiked 83%, gun crime is up 116%, sexual assault is up 74%, homicide is up 28%, and extortion has skyrocketed 357%. This is because of the Liberals' catch and release system, which the Conservative Party has vowed to end. And these aren't just statistics, they impact people's lives. Miles Sanderson went on a killing spree, killing 11 people and injuring 17 more. He was on statutory release after 59 prior convictions. If he had been on bail, if he had been in jail instead of on bail, those people would still be alive today. We have a 1.4% GDP growth in the last 10 years, whereas the US has grown by 18.2%. We have a 2025 population with 2025 problems, now with a 2015 bank balance and 2015 finances. That's why we see a 65% drop in home building starts. Rent is up, the food bill is up, mortgage and rent is up. We're paying more for less. We need to put Canada first. Mark Carney has been endorsed by Trump 3 separate occasions and has moved the HQ from one of Canada's largest corporations to New York. We need a strong Canada first
Thank
team
you.
led by Pierre
Thank you,
Paul.
Gurveer.
Vote
I
Gurveer
appreciate
Kara. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Janice, go ahead.
I want to begin by saying thank you for this opportunity. If we want to be able to protect workers, businesses, our communities, and our families, we need these type of opportunities to have discussion, not just during election, but political discussions in our communities between elections and between all parties. We need to create a society and a community where political discussion is respected and encouraged. Politics and political discussion needs to be where we are all listening to understand that we're learning and unlearning and making big visioning goals for ourselves. And we need to be able to provide that information to our MP so that they can take it to the House of Commons. We need to move away from an individual to a community approach and strategies. We need a local leader who understands we need to build local coalitions of political parties, workers, students, businesses, and social justice and community groups. We need to, I'm going to go off a little bit here, but we need to insist on proportional representation so that we make sure that we are electing those folks in our communities and in the country that people actually want to see in place and can do the work. I'm in favor of mixed member. We need to be prepared in Guelph to form a community of a resistance movement, and that needs to happen in many communities, but we can start it here in Guelph. And I'm encouraging people to make sure that they get out and vote and make sure that they make an informed vote. I believe that we need a conscience at the House of Commons, and that conscience is the NDP, and for Guelph, that conscience is Janice Folk-Dawson.
Thank you, Janice. So that concludes our Q&A session for today. So thank you to all the viewers for watching this session and to the candidates for their courage, commitment, and the call to serve this community. Politics can sometimes be a thankless job, and for you to all put your name forward and be running in our riding, we definitely appreciate. We will be posting a recording of today's session on our YouTube page tomorrow. A reminder to everyone that Election Day is April 28th. Please vote. Your voice matters. And thank you all